How long have you been conducting your radio show?
I started it in May of 2001, and the first space program that changed the direction of the radio show was actually July of 2001 with Dr. Patrick Collins in Japan on space tourism. So he was actually my first show, but before that it was a business consulting and business analysis call-in show that was boring the heck out of me. So I switched it in early July to space and never looked back.
Tell us a bit about the show over the years.
It's evolved quite a bit. Let's see, thinking back 2001, so that's really just a little over 10 years ago. So things like space tourism were a huge giggle factor. It wasn't state of the art at all. Private space, so-so, you know, it was talked about, but I don't remember any big efforts or movements or anything like that. SpaceX was not on the cards. I did some early interviews with Elon. I don't exactly remember when the first one was, but it had nothing to do with anything about building rockets. It was about his program called Mars Oasis and his desire to want to go to Mars. And he got so frustrated out of that program, not my program, but out of his efforts in wanting to go to Mars, that he realized that if he's ever going to realize his dream, he would have to take control of the transportation part himself, because there was nothing on the horizon that could serve as transportation for his Mars dreams. But the first show I did with Elon, actually I met him at a Space Frontier conference, similar to this one, at a hotel in Los Angeles. It was either the Sheraton or the Hilton, I think. I don't remember which one. And we set up the first interview, and it was about Mars Oasis's greenhouse plan to go to Mars. That was probably around 2002, maybe 2003. The next time I interviewed him a year or so later, SpaceX was on the drawing board. So it was really hard at first to ever get NASA people to come on the show. I could get a few, but most of them would not get permission or try to get permission, or if I was told to go through PA, Public Affairs, it never materialized. Could not get anybody from Boeing or Lockheed or the big companies. Had a lot of NewSpace people, a lot of academics. Academics will always grab a microphone, you know, especially if they've written a book or they've got, you know, the latest theory of this or that, or people with innovative, out-of-the-box ideas that they would like to get forth. So that started to change about 3 or 4 years after the show, and Boeing was one of the first companies that I was able to make inroads with in terms of getting their people on. NASA opened up a little bit, but not a whole lot. I would say the real change in the way the show grew, and probably even the way its format changed, was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, where it really broadened into traditional aerospace, NASA, ESA, not just the space advocacy community, which had been as it started. And where it's gone, if you look at the time frame from when the Augustine Commission came forth to now, I've probably done 150 hours of programming on space policy. These are targeted shows, not just a show where the subject came up, but on targeted policy shows about commercial space, private space, the Space Act Agreement, federal acquisition rules, traditional aerospace, the space workforce, no space workforce, you name it. So it's about 150 hours, and every single imaginable perspective and, in quote, expert has probably been on the space show to say why their perspective is the one that we should all follow. So retired shuttle workers, laid off workers from NASA, Marshall, Johnson, the Cape, they all have their view of the world, and they get a voice, whether we agree with them or not. and the same with NewSpace leaders and everything in between. So it's really now become sort of a way to let people know that there's a really huge segment of the American population and global population that really does care about space. It's not monolithic in its perspective or its view. It touches and embraces all different kinds of people across the community and all different industrial segments. And my own personal feeling is I really strive for civility, so I don't like the name calling and the attacking that happens in a lot of the industry. But I don't know the right way to do space and to develop it. I don't have a lock on the best approach, but I do think that space is so important that we can absolutely get together on the need for an appropriate government as well as private space policy, and we should be able, in a country that is free and in a country that relishes and cherishes opportunity, we should all have a chance to promote and work toward the path we think is best. And we should have the opportunity to be very successful, and we should have the opportunity to take risks and fall on our face if that's what's in the card. And I think the most healthy, robust approach to space are a lot of different interest groups understanding the value of space for the people and for the country, for the nation, and for our pocketbooks, and pursuing that development in ways that they believe are most appropriate. So if this guy wants to be 100% commercial and this guy wants to get government support over here, like you heard in a lot of the business plans this morning, hey, go for it, be successful. And I think that's where the space show is today, is to try to show that we're not all of one path and all of one ideology, and that there's a lot of room up in space. There's a lot of ways to properly expand and develop it and commercialize it, and to make sure the values come back to us here on the planet. And we need to get that message out. Nobody else is getting that message out. The members of Congress don't seem to know why space is important. NASA doesn't do a good job of doing it, and our respective communities are okay about getting the message out from their particular perspective, but they don't usually capture others in a broader sense. They don't get outside their choir. So maybe that's how the show's changed a lot. And I have a lot of people on from ATK now and Boeing, and people from Lockheed from time to time, and NASA. A lot of NASA people are on the show. So all of the barriers that I faced early on are gone.